Welcome, folks, to my first attempt to reduce my presentations on historical dance, which can be quite lengthy, into small, easily digestible pieces, a more podcast like format. Today, I will be addressing specifically how people danced to the hot jazz music of the 20s, mostly using film clips from the era. The purpose of this exercise is to present these wonderful primary source materials, which the wonders of technology have made available to us people who are interested in the dances of the early 20th century. It's something those interested in, for example, Victorian or Baroque dancing have to live without. They just have dance manuals as primary sources, while for the 20th century, we have the dance books for theory, but can also study how people moved in the past by actually watching them move. These films are our window into the topic in a way no book or modern recreation can be. Also, I have a tendency to say things that go against well entrenched beliefs and assumptions. When I do that, I like to be able to point to these films and say, I ain't making this up, folks. I should also note that my interest has always been in how ordinary folks danced. The first half of the 20th century was a time when a greater proportion of the population was social dancing than at any time in history before or since. Dance halls were everywhere, and everything from restaurants to world's fairs to ferry boats provided dance floors and music. I'm very nostalgic for that world and do my best to bring back some of it. And a big part of that is spreading the word about the incredibly easy and accessible dance options you would have had back then. Jazz comes in two basic flavors with a lot of variety in the mix: sweet and hot. Sweet music is nice, melodious, often sentimental. Hot music is brash, rhythmic, often fast, and well, jazzy. Today we're heading down the hot path and focusing on youth dances, the dancing of teenagers, young adults, dances, or at least ways of dancing that were generally abandoned around your 30th birthday. Note that this will not be a dance class. I am covering way too much ground to stop and focus on how to do a thing. And now a warning. I may be about to ruffle a few feathers. I've been accused of being a fuddy-duddy or a jerk who doesn't want anyone to have fun. And now you'll see why. I'm going to begin my talk with a rant. Of all the themed events where folks today set up a band and a dance floor, and the band plays the music of some past era while people dance, the Roaring Twenties events are the worst at actually capturing the dances of the time. What we often have is a great band playing great music, while the people on the floor are doing something that bears very little resemblance to what people were doing back in the day. The Lindy Hoppers do their 30s Lindy Hop and spread out, covering the floor with no go zones to block those who like to travel with their dancing. And the ballroom dancers do their modern competition style ballroom dances, trying to maneuver around them. And then there are solo Charlestons all over the place. Some folks fake it, thinking they're doing it wrong, but probably doing it more right than they realize. Pretty much nobody looks like those dancers in the old movies we're about to see. And speaking of movies, we come to TV and films. They pretty much always get it wrong. They either revert to the all solo Charleston all the time mode or fill the floor with people in rigid frames dancing awkwardly and stiffly. Or even worse, dancing the manner of modern competition ballroom dancers. None of this, of course, is right. At this point, you might say, so, dyspeptic Walter, who disapproves of everything, what should people be dancing? If you ask most folks what were the cornerstone dances of the jazz age, they would probably answer the Charleston in the 20s. But boy, would they be wrong. The answer is the foxtrot. If you've taken ballroom dance classes in the last 40 years, or you have watched Dancing with the Stars, you probably think you know what I mean by foxtrot. And you're probably also dubious that it could be quite what I'm saying it is. But that's because foxtrot meant something different then than it does now. So first, the name foxtrot, as it was used in the 20s and 30s, is insanely non-specific. It was essentially anything you could do in 4/4 time while holding your partner. It encompassed the one step, which was just walking in time to the music, and the two step, which was a left together left and right together right, sort of polka without the hop, or steps that combined quicks, which is a step on every beat of the music, and slows, which is a step on every other beat of the music. Or patterns that followed or didn't follow the musical phrase. Authors of dance books were generally insistent that the foxtrot was one particular thing and the one step was a different particular thing, though different authors' definitions did not necessarily agree. But in practice, dancers, band leaders, and music publishers lumped everything in 4/4 time under the name foxtrot. Many will now ask, but what about the Charleston? I thought it was the 20s and they did nothing but the Charleston. I will briefly point out that that is a misconception. The foxtrot was the foundation, the default setting, the basis of all other modern dances. And modern dance was the term used at the time to refer to the popular dances of the moment, the foxtrot, the tango, and the modern style waltz and so forth. And the Charleston had its time from about 1925 to 1927, but it was never the dance. But then the Charleston will be a topic of another program. Having concluded my curmudgeonly rant, I will now like to ask you to just sit back and relax and have fun. This stuff is wild, free, easy, sometimes quite silly, and decidedly unserious. So a bit about the foxtrot. As I said, it was a very non-specific term encompassing many different styles and steps. Although the only consistent thing is that the dancers, unless they were doing fancy footwork that forced them to move apart, were in a very close body-to-body hold. To give a sense of the ubiquitous use of the name foxtrot, I'd like to play a game I call Spot the Foxtrot. The word foxtrot is on the labels of all of these different records, each of a very different style, but it's all foxtrot. And now some practical examples. There will be several quick film clips showing people of different social classes and races doing jazzy foxtrots, some of them quite wild. Their bodies are pressed against each other and they're doing any sort of step that comes to mind. I should advise you that the moral guardians of the jazz age were adamant that jazz with its primitive jungle rhythms was destroying the morals of the young, especially young women, and was undermining people's mental health. They warned that the lunatic asylums were full of people diagnosed with jazz shock. So folks, brace yourself for an onslaught of jazz shock. Note that I've been told that my usual habit of talking over videos doesn't work well in this format, so I will keep my mouth shut during the playing of the videos, though I have put some comments to the side saying what I would otherwise have blurted out loud. So I'll be showing a few more, and just pay attention to the enormous variety of handholds and the variety of steps that people are taking, and the generally chaotic and unstructured nature of the dancing, especially that. So the story continues. Again, pay attention to the wildness and the improvisational nature of the dancing. This one, by the way, is the only clip I've shown that has its original music. By 1929, they were, of course, doing sound, and this is the original sound.
lost my gal from Memphis, she sure was sweet and cute. There ain't no gal in Memphis can be her substitute. Each time I spoke of marriage, she'd start in telling jokes. She always had this answer, tell me, how are all your folks? My gal, how could she fool me, sweet girl? I'll never forget. Oh, I lost my gal from Memphis, I think I'll take my life. No, I'll do something better, I'll go home to my wife.
So this concludes the films for this particular episode. Again, I hope you got a general sense of the foundations of Jazz Age dance, its simplicity, its wildness, and its partnership. It's not a solo Charleston, but I will cover that in another episode. It interacts with the Charleston, as you will see. But again, I don't want to get ahead of myself. And there will be additional episodes on any number of topics as I find the time and the energy. There will be the posh dances of the Jazz Age, basically the foxtrot done a little different, the waltz, the tango, the dances of the 1930s, and so forth. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.